All right, well, welcome everyone to another special event here at D&D Newbie Sessions. I'm here with Mark, aka CyberWomble. We actually had a little bit of a last minute switch up with the original organizer who was going to run this. They had like a sudden conflict, scheduling conflict or something like that. So CyberWomble here graciously stepped in to help bail us out and make sure we didn't have to cancel. So super appreciative of that. I really appreciate it, Mark, you being here and putting this together on last minute kind of notice.
My pleasure. Happy to help.
And like usual, if you have questions, we have the special events text channel, which is directly above this voice channel. You just have to click on it, like the little hashtag special events text channel. Just click on it. You'll land in a big thing, like a chat area. You can type in your question there. I'll be monitoring that as we go. And then occasionally kind of feeding questions over to CyberWomble here. Same with Twitch. If you're watching on Twitch and you want to ask a question there, post it in the Twitch chat, and then I will also make sure that gets over. If anyone wants their mic unmuted, because you have like a particularly long question or comment or something like that, you can also do that. Just let me know in the same channels. And then just like normal, there will be a VOD of this walkthrough on YouTube, on our YouTube channel as well. So if you ever want to go back and watch it later or something, you can check it out there. But I think that's everything. So without further ado, Cyberwomble, feel free to take it away.
Cool. So, welcome to this small introduction to Roll20. The aim of this session is really just to take you through some of the basics of Roll20. Get yourself set up with an encounter, get yourself set up with sort of knowing what the user interface looks like and how to do a few of the basics. This is certainly not an advanced course by any stretch of the imagination. Just a quick caveat before we begin. I am certainly by no means an expert in Roll20. And I am, as Sam mentioned before, just filling in on short notice. So please forgive the quickness of the content that I've sort of whipped together here to make something go. So let's start by creating our first game on Roll20. Hopefully you will see in my browser window, I'm logged into Roll20. And as you can see, this is the page that you get as soon as you've logged in. I haven't got any games created, got nothing uploaded. It's all completely blank. So we're starting from a sort of fresh account perspective. Signing up for Roll20 is very much like signing up for any other online service. Very simple, very easy. Email address and password. I'm sure I don't need to take people through that. So we start off by creating a new game with this big blue button up here in the right-hand corner. And we'll click that. I'll have to do some padding while my internet kicks in. So what it asks for is a name, which we'll just do D&D Newbie Sessions. You can add tags if you've set the game to sort of public settings so people can find your game through the Roll20 interface, but we're not going to cover that in this particular presentation. And the next bit, though, is quite important here. Optional, choose a character sheet. And I'm coming at this presentation from the perspective that most people are going to want to do some Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. So that's going to be the context of what we're doing here. So you just hit the drop down and we've got here Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition by Roll20. So we've got some, this will basically give you some really tight integration between Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition and Roll20. It gives you nice character sheets, nice click and go style interfaces. So we're going to do that. So name, D&D 5th edition. Yes, let's go. What that's going to do is create me a game in my sort of games library up here. First thing you can do is upload a file to sort of represent your game. This is purely optional, but we'll do something. We'll do something here. So we'll do the D&D Newbie Sessions logo. I'll just quickly upload that. Ding. And the next thing that we're going to do, following on the presentation here, so we've started our new game. We've added the name in. We have chosen the correct count sheet from the drop down. The next thing we're going to do is set up some basic settings for the game that you'll need for the sort of Dungeons and Dragons content that we want to play. So we come up to this little settings menu and we hop down here to game settings. This is going to take us to like a sort of a page where we can toggle various features on and off for this particular game. Cool. So if we have a look at this page here, we've got some stuff at the top here that's grayed out, which is a plus and pro level subscribers options. And that's a sort of paid for thing if you pay for Roll20. But what we're dealing with today is just fully available to everyone. It's a free options. So the first thing we've got here is allow players to import their own characters. We're going to toggle that onto yes, because we do want players to upload their own characters. You can read the text here, but basically it means that people with existing Roll20 accounts can import their characters into your game. So that means people can move their characters between GMs and between games on Roll20 with some interesting, without having to sort of retype them in again. The next thing we're going to do is look at the sort of game default settings. I'm going to pop into here, and this is a sort of recommended things. So the first thing is that we want to see player permissions. We want to see the names of the players when we drop them onto the map. And the second thing is we've got this bar 1, and then this is a little bit of the sort of Roll20 cliff edge learning curve that you might have to sort of get over. But this particular thing here, we're going to toggle it on to see. And bar 1, all that means is there's a little bar that we can have on top of the player tokens. And this means that it will be visible when we drag and drop them onto the battle map. So I'm going to set that onto to visible as well. And then hit this Save Defaults button down here. So I'm going to reload the page. And then just double check that that has saved. Yes, it has. Excellent. We'll set this back onto yes. That's a little bit of a fiddliness there. Right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come down and see there's absolutely tons of options down here. But there's a couple of things that you might want to check. One is this whisper rolls to GM, which just says never whisper rolls. This means that all rolls are just made out in the public, which mirrors any sort of home game tabletop stuff you've been doing before. The next thing is this useful setting here, auto damage roll. And I'm going to set this on to automatically roll damage and any critical damage. This just speeds up combat on Roll20 so that you don't have to separate out the to hit roll phase of combat and the damage rolling phase of combat. This just speeds things up when you're playing online and people are taking their turns. This is a useful thing to have. So we're going to set those two things on. I'll just double check my presentation here. Yeah, we've done that. We've got the name and the bar 1 on. We've got the import character on, and then we're going to hit the Save Defaults button. So that's down here at the bottom. Donk. Right, bosh. We've done that. We've done the Never Whisper rolls. We've done the auto crit and damage. There's 2 more settings that we might need. The add character name to templates. We're going to turn that on. So add character names to templates. I'm sure it'll be in here somewhere. There we go. Set that to on. Excellent. And that's the next thing we're going to do. These are 2 optional settings. One is for the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition encumbrance rules, and the other one is for ammo tracking for people like rangers who might want to track that. I don't use encumbrance in my game, so I'm going to turn that off. And I'm also going to turn ammo tracking off as well, because I don't penalise rangers for counting their arrows. Just something that I don't do. So let's not worry about that. So all those settings are saved. And then we click on this link at the top. And that'll take us back to our D&D Newbie Sessions game. And the next thing we're going to do, we've done that. The next thing we're going to do is to launch the game. So this is going to take us into the Roll20 interface proper. And we click on this launch game icon, and we get a little bit of a launch screen for Roll20 that would not be there if you had the paid for option. So they basically sort of splash some advertising at you for like 15 seconds, as you can see here. Boom, and we're in. We're into Roll20, and this is the sort of the workhorse, the interface that you'll be using as a GM to sort of manage your games, run the combats, do adventure type stuff. This is what you'll be using. If we whip back to the presentation, there's a couple more settings that we have to do in here. One is the advanced keyboard shortcuts, and that is just this settings cog on the far right over here. Pop that on. There's a little information icon here that can take you to the list of shortcuts that you can use when running your games. It's beyond the scope of this particular presentation, but I would definitely look to learn those as you're beginning your journey into Roll20. It just makes your life a lot easier than having to sort of remember where all the other bits and menus are. And yes, cool. And the next thing we're going to do is look at two halves of the interface. So this grid bit and this menu down the left-hand side is basically the sort of tabletop area. And this area on the right-hand side with these tabbed icons on the top, this is basically the sidebar. So these are the sort of two main areas, and you can drag these around, and you can obviously zoom into your map and zoom out, and there's various different tools on here. Now, I'm not going to go into absolutely every single one. I'm not going to mouse over every option and sort of explain what it does and what it can do, because two reasons: one, it would take too long, and two, I don't actually know all the absolute minutiae of the interface. So you'll have to just sort of pick it up from as I'm navigating around. If you've got any questions, then please slam those in the chat. So that's the sort of tabletop interface, and then we've got the sidebar on the right. The next thing we're going to do is just create a quick couple of macros, and this is I'll demonstrate what these do later, but there's a little macros menu option up here. I'm just going to add a macro, and this one is for adding characters to the initiative track. I'll just bang that on there. And then we've got just a second macro that is useful. Whoop, lost my presentation. We've got a second macro that is for perception checks, because they're like the two most used roles. So we'll just quickly create a couple of macros for those. Macros are, they can be used from the chat area, or they can be used as buttons from the token menu. I'll just double check. I've saved this one. Yeah. So this show as token action tick box is the thing that's important here, just to mark that as being on. And I'll circle back on this particular point later when we add the tokens to the onto the map. So we'll circle back on the macros, I promise. Right. So the next thing we're going to do is just take a little explore around the Roll20 interface. So on this area on the left-hand side, the sort of battle map tabletop area, we've got the select and pan view cursor options. One is for sort of dragging the map around, and the other one is for selecting tokens and doing sort of mass selections and things. There's all sorts of sort of drawing tools on here, but I've never used any of them. There's a sort of zoom option for various different zoom levels for the particular map. There's some fog of war options, which I will circle back on later. There's a button to open the initiative tracker here, which is like a sort of turn order style thing, so you know when the NPCs and PCs will be having their turns at initiative. There's a little quick dice roller here. If we click, let's click a D20, you'll see the little chat tab here is highlighted. If we pop into that, we can see it's just a quick dice roller, and then there's a help menu down here. The other thing I'd like to explore on this particular part of the interface is this page toolbar, and this is what we're going to be using to create the various different maps and encounters that you would set up as a GM. In this particular demonstration, we're going to do just one encounter, which will be like a forest encounter with some orcs in it, and then when we use this menu to you can use this menu up here basically to create them. You'll see there is a little red ribbon that sits on the top of one of these pages that's got the word players on it, and that means that whatever that red ribbon is on is the screen that your players will see when they are logged into this game on the Roll20. So that's how you sort of move your players from encounter to encounter and change what they are seeing on their Roll20 screen. All the stuff on the right-hand side, the sidebar, is always available to the players, but the sort of tabletop battle map area on the left, that changes depending on where that ribbon is on any particular screen. And we're going to go through using that in a moment. So let me just make sure. Okay, so we're going to create a new page up here from the page toolbar. We'll pop this. It starts off as untitled, but we can just click on this and we'll change this to encounter 1. Boom. And we can click on it and it'll load a new screen for us. So I don't know if you saw that transition, but this sort of blue box here highlights what we're on. If we plot back to this one, this doesn't actually change because they're both the same page, but you get the gist of what I'm doing. So we're going to set up our encounter 1. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an encounter that encapsulates just some orcs and a player character fighting things out inside a forest. So the first thing you'll probably want to do is you'll be thinking to yourself, well, it's not very exciting, Mark. We've got this blank grid of sort of white boxes. That's not particularly useful. We want a nice forest map here. And to that, I would say, yes, absolutely we do. The first thing you can do is pop the page toolbar down and have a look at the settings for this encounter. And this basically gives you a sort of width and height aspect to your battle map. Now, as standard, Roll20 work on a sort of 70 by 70 pixel grid for the particular map. But as always, nobody ever produces maps in sort of 70 pixels by 70 pixels. So we're going to have to do some customization to sort of get things to work. But you can change your grids down here. You can change the sort of the foot distance here. So if you want 10-foot grids or more, you can have that. You can have hex grids, vertical or horizontal. You can sort of change a lot of the settings in this particular thing. You can also change the sort of opacity levels of the grid and other things as you need to do here. Again, beyond the scope of this particular demonstration, but there's also some sort of ambient audio things that you can attach to these encounters as well if you're feeling really really sort of advanced with the Roll20 stuff. So what I'm going to do is I am going to set my map to be a bit bigger, and the reason for that will become apparent in a minute. So I'm going to create a 40 square by 40 square map, which is just going to make things a lot bigger. And as I zoom out, you'll see that I've got this mega huge map here. So I have already pre-downloaded a forest map, and now I'm going to add that into my Roll20 interface. So I can go over here to this second tab, which is the art library. I'll click into that, and you can see here I've got marketplace purchases, subscription sets, and free assets. So that's things that you can search on in Roll20. So if I type in, I don't know, forest in here, hit the search button, you'll see we get some results. Obviously, you can pay for some premium assets if you wish to as a GM, but I've got some free stuff on my computer that I found online that I'm going to use instead. So if we pop over to this My Library bit, you get a fairly comprehensive amount of free storage on Roll20 to begin with. But if you pay for the premium option, obviously you get more storage. So I'm going to upload a map from my hard drive here. And I've got this nice forest map, which is like a sort of path heading through a forest. So I can choose that. Now this upload interface is a bit funky because it doesn't sort of give you any confirmation that anything's happening, but it will appear momentarily on the right-hand side underneath where it says recent uploads. And I'll just pad here until this file makes its way up to the server. There we go, boom. So you can see here, I can roll over this thing and I've got this path map here. And you can create folders for these files so you can organize them to your heart's content. So there is, there are various different file sorting and file management options inside of the Roll20 interface, but let's not worry about that too much for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this map and I'm going to drag it onto the tabletop. And what's going to happen is it's going to look really stupid because it's tiny. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag it up to the top corner of the interface, and then I'm going to resize this thing so it looks a lot nicer. So as I'm dragging it out, hopefully it will, yeah, there we go. It will sort of remake itself, and I'll sort of drag it a bit more. And I don't know if you can see on your particular screen, but this particular map has already got grid lines drawn on it. And the problem here is that the grid lines on this particular map, the grid lines on this particular map don't line up with the grid lines that are on the grid lines that are on the sort of the image itself. So at the moment, as you can see, I've got sort of grid lines overlapping on grid lines, and it doesn't look particularly nice. So one of the things that you can do in the Roll20 interface is I can reconfigure the Roll20 grid to match the grid lines that are on the map that I uploaded. Obviously, if you've got maps without grid lines on them, then even better, you wouldn't need to worry about it too much. But I'll just show you how this works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to align the grid. And so I've already increased the page size. I'm going to set my zoom to 50%, and then I'm going to expand out the picture so that it fits inside this white area. So that's already done. I'm going to set my zoom to 50%. Yeah, I've got the whole picture in. It fits inside my white boxes. That's all good. I'm now going to zoom in to the map. So let's zoom into 150%. And as you can see, as I'm zooming in, you should see these grid lines are getting worse and worse and worse. Okay, and now I'm here. And the next thing that I'm going to do is you right click on, let me see, make sure I'm on the right layer. I need to put the map and background layer here. And there's an advanced menu down here. And then we go here and it says align to grid. And if I click this, you basically get a little tool that says draw a 3x3 box over the grid that is on your artwork. So if I draw this, I hope you can see it, but it's 3 squares vertically, 3 squares horizontally, and I'll let go. And it says, oh, okay, I reckon you've got your grid cells are 90 by 73. And if I hit this button, you'll see that now the grid lines in the Roll20 are exactly matched to the grid lines on the artwork, and everything is basically happy. If I zoom back out again, yeah, this all looks particularly great. I'll stick my map in my top left-hand corner. And now you're thinking to yourself, hold on, Mark, you've got a load of white space going on to the right and underneath it. Well, that's easy to fix. You can just count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 squares horizontally. So I pop back up to here, pop in the settings page. I know I've got 18 squares to take off. So I'll bosh that down to 22. That's sorted. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 squares vertically I need to take off. So that would make the height 30 squares. Bosh, close that menu. And now we've got a really nice aligned map. So the map is aligned, the grid lines are aligned. That means that when people are moving their tokens around, they get the nice snap to grid effect. And it means that the nice map that I downloaded from the internet, the grid lines all match up with the Roll20 grid lines, and everybody's happy. So now, just to demonstrate, if I go back to this start page, you'll see that this one's completely white. And if I jump back to encounter 1, you'll see that I've got this nice map here. So that's how, and you would go on and you would build encounters. And then in previous games, I've had a whole set of these pages for different encounters, forest encounters, cemetery encounters, castle encounters, whatever it might be. And you can pre-build them, you can reuse them. So you can sort of, set them up ahead of time, which is what any good GM would do. So that is the sort of the map part of it sorted. The thing to be sure of is that on this second drop down here, that you're always working in the map and background layer. If you try and add your map into these other layers, you'll get some weird behaviors happening to you, and you won't find that aligned to grid menu is not here now, you see. But if I'm in the map and background, I've got it. So that's just a bit of a gotcha there. You just got to make sure that you're on this map and background layer, not the objects and tokens layer. And I'll go a little bit into extra further detail on these layers as we build up the encounter. Now, if I just flip back to my presentation, we have aligned the grid. Right. So the next thing we've got to do, so we've got our map, we've got our forest. We're going to import some monsters. And here's a little note for me. Don't forget to change layers to the token layer. Excellent. Good job, Mark. Right. So I'm going to flip to my objects and tokens layer. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And the next thing I'm going to do is go to another tab that we haven't explored yet, which is this compendium tab up here. And it is pretty much what it says on the tin. It's a searchable index of all 5th edition SRD content, plus some extra bits and pieces as well. And in here, what we want to do is create some orcs that we can fight as a player character. So I'm going to type in the word orc into the search box, and you'll see I've got loads of results here that match that text. But what I'm looking for is not proficiencies orc, but I'm looking for monsters orc. And what I can do is I can take this and I'll just left click and drag it onto my tabletop. And it will automatically open up some details for me. So the first thing I get is like a little text information tab with traits and actions on it. And if I click on this next tab for count sheet, you'll see I've got the traditional sort of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition stat blocks here. So I can have a look at, okay, he's got armor class 13, 15 hit points, etc., etc. There's also some extra buttons down here if you want to add your own abilities and attacks in, again, beyond the scope of this particular presentation, but feel free to explore that in your own time. And this attributes and abilities page is something that you shouldn't mess with. It's just the sort of technical bits that sit behind the scenes in Roll20. I would stay away from this tab completely.
Hey, Mark.
Yep.
Really quick question from one of the users. I'm not sure if you'll be able to help with this one because it sounds like it's maybe a troubleshooting type issue, but have you ever imported a map or an asset before and it's been like darkened or dimmed out when you kind of brought it onto the grid, I guess?
Yes, because you've got fog of war turned on probably in your Roll20, or you're on the wrong layer, would be my guess.
Okay,
or
cool.
You've set your page up here in this page toolbar. You might have set the opacity to be the wrong value. Those are some things I can think of off the top of my head, but other than that, I'm not sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, so where were we? We've dropped our orc token onto the map. We've got these bits and pieces here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to change the name of the orc to this magic text value down here. So I'm just going to copy that from my presentation, pop back to here. You'll see the word orc up here, but as I hover over it, I don't know if you can see, but on the right-hand side, I've got this cog that appears. It's very subtle, but we want to go onto that. I'm going to click that, and we get the sort of editable view of this particular creature. And where we've got name orc here, I'm going to delete that and just paste in this text. Now, why am I doing this? It's a really good question. It's because I want to name all of my orcs in the encounter, and I don't want them all to just be called orc, 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 orc. I'd like them to have excellent names so that the players can say, well, I'm going to attack Chief Skull Splitter or whatever it might be for the particular orc. At the moment, this all feels like magic Roll20 pseudocode, magic string values that we're pasting in here. Again, I apologize, but it's just part of the Roll20 learning curve that some of this stuff is a little bit tricky to understand at first, but going through the documentation and reading some of the wiki articles, it should become clearer. This is basically a sort of Roll20 code that says when this token rolls a dice, make sure that you use it in the context of the selected token and then output their name. And you'll see an example of this in a minute, essentially. So I've pasted the text in and hit this cog thing, and that's just going to change the name. And it looks stupid. Yes, I get that, but trust me, it'll all come good. It'll all come good in the end. So after I've dragged this orc onto the map, if we go to this tab that we haven't explored yet called the journal, we can see that what I've got in here is a character that's been added. Because I dragged it from the compendium onto the tabletop, it's basically created me a little thing here. Now, I don't have to keep him in characters. I can add a folder here, and let's call it monsters. Boom. And I can move this orc into the monsters folder, hopefully. He says, yeah, here we go. Okay, come on, there we go. Boom. So you can, as you can see, Roll20's got a lot of this sort of folder organization. So as a GM, if you've got like a sort of palette of monsters, or you've got some NPCs, or you've got other assets that you want to organize, it isn't just one big list of stuff. You can actually organize your sort of play style and your NPCs and things correctly. Right, so that's in the journal. What's the next steps? Okay, so the next steps are we're going to create something in Roll20 called a token. And a token is like a chess piece on the board. It's like a checkers piece on the sort of checkers board. It's like a D&D figurine on a battle map. If you were playing in person, that's the sort of mental sort of parallels that you need to draw with tokens. They're representations of things. At the moment, this orc in the journal is very much like an index reference. It's not actually a thing. It's just a sort of, okay, if I look up orc, it's, these are its stats. It's not actually a sort of a proper thing yet. So to start the token journey, I'd like to have a nice image for my orc token, because at the moment, as you can see, it looks like a sort of a default icon from somewhere, just like a little circle. So it looks a bit silly. So again, back to the art library, and I'm going to hit the upload button here, and I'm going to choose a file, and I've got an orc picture here that I downloaded earlier. Hit that. Bosh. And you can see here, I've got, if I hover over this, you should see this nice orc with his great axe, and that's the sort of image that I've uploaded. Now we've got the image, we've got the token. We need to join them together. So I'm going to drag this image off here and onto the tabletop. Bosh. And you can now see that I've got a little orc fellow down here. So let's zoom in so that we can see them both in a bit more detail. And I suspect one of the questions you're asking yourselves is, when I click on this orc thing, what are all these little pop-out squiggly things that happen? Good question. These are little advanced bits and pieces for both the GM and the player. So the GM gets these little call-out menus that he can use to edit things. So we've got the settings and this overlay menu here, which I'll cover in a bit. And these three things at the top are essentially sort of displayable values that players can sort of click on this token, and they can see these sort of three little circle things at the top. And they're useful for the GMs and the players, and they can be configured in all sorts of different ways. Again, apologies, but beyond the scope of this particular presentation. But I will show you some of the neat things that menu offers. So what we're going to do now is we want to say that this thing is an orc. So we've double clicked on the picture, and it opens up this token settings panel here. And I've said that this is an orc because he can be selected because he's in my journal. So I've got orc here, and I've got an option for nameplate, and I'm going to tick that box to turn it on. All that means is that as a player, you'll see the names of the monsters underneath the monster token. And that's just so that if you're reusing the same picture, you can have different names underneath the tokens, so that when the players go, oh, I'm going to hit Chief Skull Splitter, and you're reusing pictures, you know which one he's talking about. So that's the first thing. So we've enabled the nameplate, and then we've got these two things here, bar 1 and bar 2. We've got hit points and AC. So I'm going to pop back here. So this is this token bars part on the right-hand side. And what it shows here is 15 out of 15 hit points. And this one, I'm going to put in here AC 13. When I hit save, what's going to happen here is that I don't know if you can see it. I'll zoom in a bit more. You should see here that we've got this 15 bar now sitting at the top of his head. We've got his nameplate underneath that says orc. And when I click on him, you'll see here that this green circle links up with this green bar. It gives me 15 hit points. But I also get, as a quick reference, this little blue circle telling me that his AC is 13. Now, that's super handy as a GM, only having to do one click to basically figure all that stuff out. Okay, so the players will not be able to select the orc. They'll only be able to see the health bar, not the number, and they won't be able to see the AC either. So to prove that, I can go back to this little settings menu, and on the top right-hand corner, because I'm a GM, I can rejoin this Roll20 instance, but I can rejoin it from a player perspective. So if I rejoin as a player, I'm going to see a white screen because that's where the player's ribbon is. But if I drop the player's ribbon onto this one and close this, I'll rejoin as a player. This is just going to take a couple of seconds for Roll20 to reload. Downloading pictures. Now, from a player point of view, I don't know if you can see that, but the numbers have gone out of the bar, and all I've got is the word orc underneath. I think that's pretty cool. So you don't know as a player how many hit points they've got, but you do know that this guy's on full life. I'm going to rejoin back as a GM, so I've got all the options available to me.
Oh, well, while you're doing that, Mark, we get a question here. Do you know if there's a way to turn off all nameplates? Kat here bought an adventure with 100+ tokens, looking for an easier way than one by one.
Yeah, so I would check that game settings menu that we looked at the beginning of the game, the beginning of when we sort of set up the. Let me duplicate this. I suspect it will be. In here somewhere. I don't know if any of this might have the name part on it, or it might be down here. This thing here, add character name to templates. You might want to try toggling that off and see what happens. I'm not sure if that's the role templates or the token templates. That might be the way forward there. I'm not sure. Again, my caveat is I am not an expert in Roll20. Right, continuing on. Right, so we've seen the orc from the player point of view, and we know that they can't see sensitive information that us GMs like to keep secret, like AC and hit points. We're going to continue on our journey of configuring this orc token. So the next thing we're going to do, shift, double click, and brings up this orc thing again. We've got the orc's character sheet and the attributes and etc. If I now hit this edit button up here, I get a slightly different configuration for the token. And what this here is basically saying is that if I drag an orc from my journal onto the map, what do I actually want as the default token? And what I can do here is just use the selected token. And you can see, because I've got the little orc selected in the background, it's got the right token up here. I can also set a picture for the journal. So I'm going to do that, which is this avatar bit. This will upload in a second. Bosh. Save changes. Close this. If I whip back to the journal, you should be able to now see I've got a nice little picture next to my orc guy now. So yeah, I know who he is. And if I drag one of these bad boys onto the map, boom, you'll see I get the nice picture. I can delete this guy because we don't need him anymore. So I've got one orc, I've got two orcs, and let's have three orcs. Dosh. Excellent. We did say we were going to have a 3 orc encounter. That makes total sense. Right, so I've added 3 orc tokens and changed the names. Right, so let's change the names on these orcs. So we can just double click on these, and this guy can be Chief Skull Splitter. Dosh. This guy, he can be Hench Orc. this guy down here can be Raging Orc. So you can see here that we can, even though we've got the same picture for each of our orcs, we can actually change the nameplate options on them so that the players can see there is some differentiation between the creatures. Obviously, you're more than welcome to create multiple orcs and multiple variants of them. But this is a sort of quick and easy way to get a little bit of variance in the monsters without having to go to the hassle of importing things kind of like multiple times. Right, so we've got these tokens. I'm going to flip back to the sort of chat window. How do we actually use these things? Well, what I can do is I can shift double click on one of these things to get up its character sheet. So the first thing we're seeing is this bio, but we're going to whip to the character sheet. And in the character sheet, as I mouse over things like Great Axe, Javelin, Strength, Dex, Con, my cursor changes from an arrow to being a sort of finger pointer. And if I hover over this Great Axe thing here and I'll left click, what's going to happen is that it's going to make a roll for me in the chat, which you can see on the right hand side. Now, what you can do is we can actually go over and have a look at some of this. So you can see I've got Raging Orc selected and his name has appeared underneath the Great Axe attack. So as a GM, you know when you click on a token, you know when we change the name, selected token name. So he is my selected guy and my token name is Raging Orc, and that's why I'm getting that in the underneath the sort of Great Axe name here. Now what we can do is Roll20 gives me 2 rolls. So it's given me this attack 821. Now, why has it done that? That's a good question. When we set up the game options in the beginning, it basically, we told it that we wanted to roll attacks and the damage simultaneously. So as a GM, what it's done here is it's basically given me 2 D20 rolls. So in this one, it's done 1 D20 plus 5, which is rolled 3. So 3 plus 5 is 8. Plus 5, which equals 21. Now, why would you want 2 numbers here? Well, because if the orc has disadvantage, you would choose the lower of the 2 numbers. If the orc had advantage, you'd want to choose the higher of the 2 numbers. If he doesn't have advantage or disadvantage, he might just be rolling normally, you would just choose the first number that comes. Now I can say something like, as a GM, I can say, well, the orc swings his Great Axe towards the paladin and tries to attack his armor class with an attack roll of 8. Did that hit? And if he does hit, I've then got, well, okay, he's doing D12 plus 3 damage. In this case, it would be 8 slashing. So you do get the breakdowns of the rolls as you sort of mouse over these various numbers, which is useful in case you want to double check the maths that's going on inside the Roll20. So we can click on attacks to see rolls in chat. What else can we click on? Well, inside the character sheet, I can click on strength. I can get a strength saving throw. I can click on dex, con. I can click on javelin. I can click on javelin here. I can even click on aggressive, and I can get some stuff pushed out in the chat. It's it's just a lovely way to basically sort of click these things. You get all the rolls done for you. You can see all the attacks. You can, as a GM, you can sort of double check everything and make sure it's all as you need it to be. Now, the problem here is that I have to hold down shift, double click on this orc guy, get up this modal window, click to character sheet, and then click on Great Axe. And that is a bit of a pain. I agree. So one of the things we can do is we can leave it on the character sheet tab, and I can come up here to this where it says orc in this white space menu up here. It's not immediately obvious, but the cursor sort of changes to like a 4-pointed star. And if I double click now, what it's going to do is going to minimize this little bar for me and make it a little bit opaque. Now what I can do is I can have a little list of these creatures essentially on the right hand side of my battle map. And now when I want to roll a Great Axe attack, I click on the token that I want to attack with. I double click on this thing, I'm bashed into the character sheet, hit a Great Axe, and I'm away. So that 2 clicks is definitely a lot better than doing it the sort of doing it the sort of long-handed way where you have to sort of where you have to hold down Shift, double click, and then move tabs. So I'm just sort of demonstrating that there are ways, and you can arrange these little windows. You can sort of save them in different places or create a thing of them. The other thing you can do is when these windows are popped out, you can actually hit this button up here, and that will create a whole separate window. Now, you might not be able to see that on the Discord because it's popped it into a new browser window, but you essentially can get little mini windows popping out as well. So if you've got a multi-monitor setup at home, you can have all your NPC stats on one monitor and have your tabletop on another monitor. So it's all super good, super easy to use. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and I'm just going to go over this. Why have I got this 15-15 above here? Well, we set that up at the beginning because that's the Orcs hit points. And when they take damage, what can be cool is that I can come up to here, I can click on this little number where it says 15, and it says enter a new value into the box. So let's say he's taken 5 points of damage, and I put the number back down to 10. And here it's really nice because now his little green bar has basically shrunk, and he's now 10 hit points of 15. Yeah. Now, if we were to look at that from a player perspective, let's again click on the settings cog. Let's rejoin as player. Wait a few moments for the Roll20 to reload. And as you can see from the player view, they don't have the numbers, but they do have the hit point bar. So if you've got players that like to be tactical about which monsters they're hitting, who they're targeting, maybe the rogues looking for a sneak attack kill, there's a little tactical piece of information in the form of this hit point bar that you can offer to your players as a sort of sweet incentive. Maybe the barbarian wants to get in that, when you fall, when you down an enemy, you get a second attack. That kind of tactical information is very useful for players, and I think should be encouraged so that their abilities kick off more and more and more. So that's a sort of useful visualization for the players. Let's pop back as a GM. Okay, so we've gone over minimizing or popping out the character sheet. That does save some time as a GM trying to click through to the character sheet. Okay, so let's go for a little bit more of a deep dive into this little token menu that pops out. So I'm going to zoom in again on these three little orc dudes. So if we click on this Raging Orc, we've got this little pop-out menu here. What it can do is, let's say you had, I don't know, an Orc Archer, for example, but you want an Archer in the name tag. You could put a little blue dot. He's an Archer. You can come to this side and give him a red dot. He's raging. To modify your monsters a little bit and add sort of different things to them. The other thing that these are useful for is there's this X icon, which is like, okay, he's dead. That's an option. You can also turn this off. There's another little menu that you can get to from here. You can tint the monsters with like a sort of red color. So maybe this guy is raging and he's now red because he's in sort of rage mode. So there are different, essentially sort of different visual things that you can do and have on these monsters that will conditions. Maybe he's dazed, maybe this guy is asleep, maybe he's poisoned, status condition trackers, all sorts of different things. You can again fill these up as much as you like. So this just gives you a way as a GM that you can kind of like track things. Now, the other thing that we did at the beginning is we created these couple of macros up in the sort of macros menu up here. And we had one for initiative and one for perception. Now, when I've selected a token and I've got my little grid box around it, you should see up in the top right here, I've got a couple of buttons, one that says initiative and one that says perception, and they line up with the macros that we created earlier. If I come back to the chat, and I say my Raging Orc guy, and I can hit perception here, and he's going to make a perception roll. So he rolled 19 plus 0, gives him a total of 19. let's say this guy wants to make a perception roll. We can click that. He's got 6. Let's say the hench orc wants to make a perception roll. Boom. So you can see here that you can set up little macros and action bar buttons that enable you as a GM not to have to keep like, okay, I need to click into this guy, I need to find his character sheet, I need to then find his perception. Okay, it's not got his skill listed. Okay, well, the answer to that is to set up macros and figure this stuff out ahead of time. Now, there are a load of wiki guides and excellent documentation on the Roll20 site that will basically talk you through all of this process. But what I'm giving you here is basically a little bit of a sort of quick tour of some of the things that you can do. And I'm not expecting everybody to know, how to create macros out of the box, but at least I've shown you that these sorts of things are possible. And if this then helps you in your Roll20, you're like, oh, I remember the presentation where somebody said that we could have these macro buttons. Maybe that will help me with my attack problem or perception problem, or maybe I've got an encounter coming up that's everybody's going to have to make loads of con saves. Well, we can create a quick button for that, make that whole experience a lot nicer. Okay, so we've done dots, dead markers, tints, settings, macro bar at the top, and we've done the taking of the damage where we can edit the button, edit the green values to take the bar down. What do we need next? Well, we're going to need a player character to basically fight these orcs in this encounter. So the next thing I'm going to do is pop back to the journal, and I'm going to hit this add button in the top right hand corner. That is going to ask me, do I want to add a character, a handout, or create a folder? Well, in this particular case, I know that I want a character. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to give me a little dialog window that pops open. Now, this one is like the Roll20 generic details window. And we've got a name here. Let's call him Hero. And this is basically the first step to creating a character. Now, obviously, down here we've got like tokens and avatars and things like that. Let's not worry about too much about that. We'll fill those in a minute. When I hit save, the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to say, okay, you've given me a character called Hero. What is his, what does his character sheet look like? Now, what the Roll20, when we did the drop down at the beginning that said which character sheets do you want to use, and we chose D&D 5th edition ones from that drop down. This is that choice basically coming back to help us. So I don't know if you can see, but we've got a little menu in the middle that says use the Charactermancer, create an NPC, or edit the sheet directly. So what I'm going to do is to use the Charactermancer wizard. I'll hit this. Hopefully, he says, where's my wizard? Here we are. So it says, welcome to the Charactermancer, and it's basically going to take me through a quick D&D character gen thing. So let's just say I'm going to be a Dragonborn. I'm going to be Lawful Goods, because that's all Dragonborn can do. I'm going to be a Black Dragon. Next, I want to be a Barbarian. I'm going to choose Animal Handling and Athletics. Next. I'm sure everybody knows how to create Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition characters by now. I'm going to choose just some quick attribute scores. It doesn't really matter. As you know, I'm sure you can see that you get loads and loads of choices here. Hopefully this wizard thing will choose some equipment. I'm just going to have a battle axe and a club. Yay. Cool. Feats, don't need any feats. Bio, yeah. Age, 12. Height, going to be 8 foot tall. Weight, I don't know, lots. Eyes, 2. Hair, none. Skin, scales. Next, review everything that we chose. Yep, sounds great. Apply the changes. Boom. Cool. So it's created as a character. that's nice. We've got all these little cogs that we can use to edit parts of the character sheet, which I won't do quite this second, but I'm sure you can get the gist of what's happening here. After we've created the character, we are going to set the avatar, image, and token. Excellent. Right, so next thing I want to do is give this guy a cool image. So I'm going to add, nope, I don't want to add a folder. I want to upload, and I've got a cool barbarian hero token here. I'm going to upload that. Again, this right-hand thing should reload in a second when it's uploaded it, he says. There we go. Cool. Okay, let's just drag this guy onto the map. Cool. Now back to our journal. Back into our hero guy. I'm going to hit the edit button here. We're going to say use the default token, and we're going to give this guy the same avatar. Save this guy's changes. Hopefully this is uploaded correctly. No, didn't wait for it to upload. Just wait for it to upload then. Hopefully his avatar should change on the right hand side in the journal, as well as his all the token things should change. We'll set that. Come on. There we go. Brilliant. Cool. So we've got this. Let's delete him off here. And now we've got this guy. We can drag him into the, can we drag this guy? Yeah, into the characters folder. Excellent. We can drag him onto the map. Okay, yeah, he's got a bit of transparency problems around his thing, but you get the gist of what's going on here. And as you can see, this is all snapping to the grid as I'm moving this token around. I don't have to be very precise with it. That's my 5 foot. Pop back here. Okay, cool. All right. So if I go to the chat window, and again, I look at this guy's character sheet. Where are we? Yeah. I see this. I see his character sheet. Scratch the journal. Click on this guy. Click on the character sheet. Click on the chat thing. Down here, again, all this stuff is clickable, like all the things in the character sheet. So if I click on animal handling, for example, you'll see that the role appears here. But what I need to do is select this guy and then do the role. Let's make sure that I've got this. Here we are. Represents. That's what I need to do. So again, I need to click on the token and I need to say that he represents the hero, which I just created. Let's show his nameplate and save all this down. Excellent. Now, when I shift double click, I do get the character sheet. Okay, cool. And in the Roll20 now, if I hit animal handling again, yeah, great. I hit deception. All the skills come out. Excellent. Saving throws, brilliant. All that seems to be working, which is good. One of the optional things that you can do is, again, change a little bit of the character sheet so that it makes it easier for the GM. So again, we've got some Roll20 specific code here. Pop back into the token, into the character sheet. And I've got a bunch of attacks in here that he can do: battle axe one-handed, battle axe two-handed, club, and javelin. If I go into the one-handed battle axe thing, and I paste this code into the description box, and it says target the selected token, and basically print his name out. So what I'll do there is save that. Now, when I select this guy, and then we go into select this guy, go to the character sheet. We hit this. He says, there we go. You'll see that, yeah. So what will happen here is that as the player, when I select the orc as the thing that I want to smash, and I roll my attack, the name of the orc will appear in the Roll20 output in the chat. Again, I am bad at Roll20, so I don't seem to be able to reproduce it at the moment. But oh, here we are. Target hedgehog. There we go. So I did get it right. So now when he rolls his attacks, it's going to output the name of the bad guy that he's hitting when the player attacks, which is exactly what we want. So yeah, excellent. What's the next thing we've got to do? Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is how to track initiative in combat. So let's say, for example, that we've got our hero paladin or hero barbarian attacking these 3 orc guys. What we're going to do for initiative? Well, we did look before that we had this little turn order button that pops this little menu open here. And we know that we had a macro for initiative that when you click on the token, you get this little initiative button up here. So what we can do is you can just click on these guys and you can hit the initiative button and their initiative appears in this little menu thing. Bish, bash, bosh. You can hit this little settings thing and you can sort descending so that you get the right order. You can also drag the ordering around if you really, really wanted to. The green highlights the guy whose current turn it is. And again, you can actually ping them on the map from this, can't remember exactly the keyboard shortcut, but you can actually, you see as I'm mousing over these people, you'll get the little yellow square appear on them. So it sort of says who they are, who's up next, that kind of thing. And then when you hit this little arrow, you'll see that the green bar advances in terms of the initiative. So hero drops to the bottom and the next guy comes in and then the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy, etc. With the little settings cog, we can also sort the initiatives in descending order. We can sort in ascending order. We can sort the guys alphabetically if we really want to. What else have we got in here? The other thing that we've got in here is this add custom label with a round calculation thing on it. So let's say, for example, you've got a wizard that casts a spell like Spirit Guardian and it lasts 3 rounds. You can type in here like Spirit Guardians. And then you could say he's going to be like, I don't know, like 3 rounds. Whoop. And then add it in. And then we can add this thing in and say 3 rounds. Perfect. And then as you work through the initiative, as the Spirit Guardians comes up, you can then go, oh yeah, okay, this he's now got like 2 rounds left on him. So you can basically ad hoc things into the initiative tracker or the turn order tracker so that you can track spells, track conditions, statuses, other bits and pieces in here in an ad hoc fashion. You can also sort of delete them out as well. So that's nice and easy. And again, remember that, you know, if I stun this guy, I can use my icons here and I can, you know, okay, this guy's stunned. You know, this guy's been attacked and he's, I don't know, he's slowed. He's got a snail icon on him. So again, more good visual fidelity for the players to see what's happening in the particular combat. If I jump out of this and just show you what it looks like from a player perspective. That's the Roll20 reloads. Yep, that's what we'll do next. Yeah, so from the player perspective, you can see I've got the little status condition markers on there. I've got my hit point bars with the different values in it, and I can see where the other players are. So if I had more player tokens on here, then we'd have more sort of interesting combat going on. But I'm sure you can get the gist of how to move sort of tokens on a grid. So the next thing is that you might want to control what the players can see as the encounter like loads up for the players. And again, we have to go back to this sort of layers concept, which is this second menu down here. So currently I've got everything. So all my tokens are on the objects and tokens layer. So the 3 orcs and the hero are all on there. But I've also got a third layer called GM info. Now, what that is for secret stuff that only the GM can see. So let's have for instance, that the party are entering from the north and they start on this sort of upper part of this path here, and they don't know that there are 3 orcs that are going to be attacking them from behind these trees. So I'll move these guys around a little bit. So what I can do is I can select these 3 guys, I can hit the right click and I can send them to the GM layer and they disappear. Okay, now if I log back in as the player, from the player perspective, although they can see the entire map, they will now not be able to see those orc tokens. As you can see, they've disappeared from the player perspective. So maybe you want to hide some bad guys behind trees and then introduce them in like the second round or the third round of combat, or maybe you want to make your players roll some perception checks or something. There's this nice way as a GM that you can hide things from the players on the battle map and move your tokens around. Now, when you want to throw these guys into combat, it's pretty easy. Again, what you can do is you can just again hit the right layer. So on the GM info layer, select these guys, and I can just send them into the token layer, and now they will be visible to the players. And that's just a very quick way that you can sort of hide enemies and combatants and then sort of push them down into that token layer to make them visible to the player. Yes, so we can keep monster tokens hidden on the GM layer until they're ready to come in. Okay, so we've done the initiatives. We've looked at the custom round tracker that we had before. So that's in this little thing here. Again, the players will get to see this and they'll get to see what the initiative numbers of things are. And as you can see, as a GM, maybe I'm looking at the map from a sort of zoomed out perspective. And so as I hover over these initiative things, I can see which creature it is that initiative pertains to. So that's quite a nice little feature as well. Okay, so we're done with that. Okay, so the next thing is the Fog of War, which is exactly what it sounds like. What you can do is you can essentially hide a lot of the map from the players and then only reveal it when you want to reveal it. So that's used this this little kind of cloud button over here, and we can come down and we've got reveal areas, polygon reveal, and hide areas. So I'll just show you these two easy bits. So I'm going to choose hide areas, and I'm going to just say I want to hide all of this stuff. So I just swipe a load of the map, turn on Fog of War, and what you'll see now is the map has basically dulled somewhat, and it is very subtle. But basically, if I log back in as the player now, everything is going to be invisible or black, basically. So let's head back in as a player. So as you can see, the map is basically a big black square because the Fog of War is on. Let's pop back as a GM. Let's say this, for example, was a night encounter, and you said, okay, maybe the players have only got like a 10-foot vision. What I can do is I could say reveal areas, and I can just draw like a column down the map here, dosh. And then as you can see, I've got a sort of slightly shaded area on the left, a clear area in the middle, and another shaded area on the right. And again, if we pop back and see that from a player perspective, we should now get a nice sort of visibility line down the middle. So they can see some of the map, but not all of the map. And again, as players move around, as the GM, you've got the opportunity to basically slice the Fog of War away based on the player's perception distance, perhaps, or where they move as a token. Now, there are a more advanced Fog of War option in Roll20, so that you can actually set like a radius around the token and it'll automatically reveal. But I believe that's a paid-for option. I'm not entirely sure, but it was last time I checked. Again, I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong on that. Okay, so that's the Fog of War option. Okay, so let's just turn off this this Fog of War thing. Reveal the whole map. Cool. So let's get back to the select. Let's grab this guy, move him here, zoom in a bit. Nice, 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 nice. So let's just go back to and see what we actually covered in this presentation. So the first thing is that we created a new page for our forest encounter. Excellent. The next thing we did was we used the art library to upload this path map, and then we used the map and background layer, and we used the align to grid functionality to get the grid lined up with the background picture. And once our background layer was set, we again went up to the page menu, went to this little settings cog, and we adjusted the width and the height so that when we zoom out, we get no extra white squares at the end. The next thing that we did was that we went to the compendium and we looked up an orc. We added this orc into our journal, and we changed the name of the guy to this sort of Roll20 code, the selected token name. After we did that, we then gave the orc a nice little avatar picture, both for the journal and as a token. Then we learned that we can actually drop multiple of these guys. You can drop as many of these orc guys as you like on the map. We learned how to set up their hit point bars. We learned how we can do overlay tokens on them. We learned how we can sort of change the names and see the name templates. So we learned how we can sort of set up our monsters nicely. We then went through the whole process of adding a character. Again, you don't need to go through that whole character wizard thing that I showed. You can actually just like import characters from places, or you can use existing ones, I think, from the sort of Roll20 menu. So that was nice. We learned about the GM info overlay layer, where we can hide things and keep things secret from the player, like a hidden layer, and then we can send them into the token layer when we need to invoke them in combat. We learned that there is a huge kind of macro support for all these creatures. So as we go into their character sheets, we can slap these attacks and they will spit things out in the chat for us. We learned how we can do the same thing for the actual hero characters. We learned that all this whole character sheet is interactive and we can click on things and get attacks working in the Roll20 chat from here. That's perfect. So, oh yeah, it was telling me that I need to select a token to attack. Then we learned about the fog of war options that are available, and admittedly I only showed you a brief introduction to those, but it is available and you sort of can make use of it. I find it particularly fiddly to use in Roll20 without that sort of automatic thing happening. We also learned about the turn orders, initiatives, and little macro buttons up here that we can use to make rolls in the chat, so to make our combat nice and easy for us. And then the last thing that we went over was the layers and the fog of war. So that pretty much kind of covers, goes over what we basically kind of went through. So Roll20 is a tool, but there are other options. There's a fantasy ground system and there's an astral system. What didn't I show you? Well, there's loads that I didn't show you. I didn't show you the jukebox that you can have for background music playing in Roll20. I didn't show you what the decks and rollable tables are, but again, they are mostly for just random things that you want to sort of have the players to roll on, sort of different tables. I didn't go into some of the audio and video options that you can have inside of Roll20, so you can actually do all your video and voice in here as well if you want to. So I didn't cover that either. And this, the chat box here has got a whole welcome, as you can see here, welcome to Roll20. It's got a whole sort of syntax and chat commands for rolling dice in different ways and having different messages appear in different templates. I didn't cover any of that. All that information is available in the Roll20 wiki, and you're more than welcome to go through that and have a look to your heart's content. But inside of an hour and 15 minutes, we did manage to get and encounter some orcs and a player character on a map, and get some sort of hit point tracking, some status conditions, and some attacks working from our warrior, so from our barbarian guy. So yeah, that pretty much concludes the sort of quick intro to Roll20 and what it can do. Any questions, Sam?
Cool. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, please post them to that special events text channel. I'll keep an eye on that here. In the meantime, cool. That was a great overview, Mark. Thanks for doing that. I actually had some questions myself I wanted to ask as we were going through. While we're waiting to see if anyone else has some. First, the macros. Those are just kind of like some of the ones where you actually wrote out commands and stuff. Those are all just optional. And where are you even like learning about how to write those? That's all in the wiki or something?
It is, and you definitely don't need them. So again, if we went to the macros thing here, and how do we delete these? Here we go. If I delete these, delete these guys. Okay, so now we don't have any macros, but we need to roll initiative. So let's get our initiative tracker up. And let's say we clear out the initiative thing. So I've got nothing up my sleeve. So we cleared out the turn order. And you want this guy to roll initiative. Well, I need to go into his character sheet. And if I click on the name of this guy, you'll see that it rolls initiative and adds him in here. So I don't need the macro to do it. But it's just more steps as a GM that you have to do. So it's totally optional. Again, if you feel happy just using the using this character sheet just to roll initiatives, you're more than welcome to. Again, you can have this little pop-out window. I don't know if Sam, can you see that pop-out window on my screen? I don't know. If
no, we can't.
Okay, so it sort of opens another browser instance that you can use on like a second screen. So let's say I did that for this guy. So let me open this guy up. I'll open that in another window and I'll take that onto my second monitor. He says, come on, Roll20, wake up. That's better. Okay, so I've got him popped out on my second monitor. You'll see here, look, his initiative's changing, look, to 3. Let's roll it again. 14, 9. So I can have like, it's particularly for me, if I'm doing this kind of stuff online, I'd have all the windows open for my bad guys so that I knew what they were doing. Just a bit of sort of second monitor window management. But yeah, you don't need the macros.
Okay. We got a question here from Apollonot. What about Beyond 20? I think that's the Beyond 20 Chrome extension, I think is what he's talking about.
Yes. I don't know is the short answer to that question. The longer answer would probably be yes, there probably is integration with Beyond 20 and the Beyond D&D and the Roll20 stuff.
Okay.
I don't have a subscription to be able to sort of test that stuff out, and didn't have enough time. Didn't have enough notice to basically kind of make a demo of that work, but I'm pretty sure that will be well documented on one of the websites, on one of the Roll20 websites, to make that work.
Okay. Yeah, and for anyone listening, there's a I think it's just Chrome extension out there, and I think it's called like Beyond 20, I believe, and I think it supports Roll20 has some Astral support, I think some other tabletops, and allows some like information to be sent between between Beyond D&D Beyond and some of the tabletops.
Yes, I would also add to what Sam just said that if you're doing Roll20 and streaming on Twitch and have the D&D Beyond subscription, I believe that people watching on Twitch can then see your characters' like hit points and things in a Twitch overlay as well.
Oh, okay.
So you get sort of increased integration.
Cool. Let's see. It looks like Melody's writing something here. While we're waiting for that. Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, Melody here said, if you add the Beyond 20 extension, you can roll from D&D Beyond into the Roll20 chat, which I believe that's kind of what I think you can do that with like Astral as well, which is that's a really handy feature.
Agreed.
I had another question in the Pages tool. It creates, I think, like that. Did it create that start one by default?
It does indeed.
And is that where, so like when I'm making stuff in Astral, for instance, I'll make like a series of maps, and that's, the journey my players are going to go down. And when I exit Astral, oftentimes I'll be exiting the last map. When I start to invite players, like in Roll20, do they default always into like the first page? Like they're not going to accidentally end up in like one of the other maps I created that's out of order or anything like that?
Yeah, so that can happen. They will basically appear on the page that has the player's ribbon on it.
Okay, so you got to make sure that that's in the right spot as you're making pages and stuff.
Agreed, yeah.
Okay.
I typically turn this start page into like a sort of welcome to the campaign, and I normally have some text and image on the start page that sort of says, D&D from 1 to 10 level. Last session we did this, and have like a synopsis on there.
Oh,
so
cool.
that when your players log in to the tabletop, they've immediately sort of like having to think about like what happened last session, and
Mm-hmm.
then as the encounters go, then I move the ribbon into whatever the first encounter is of that particular day.
Okay.
So yeah, typically I leave the start page as the start page, and then again, just remember to have to move that player's banner during my GM prep time.
Okay. And actually, when you move that player's banner ribbon thing, like onto encounter one now,
Mm-hmm.
do they just immediately see the whole map, or do you have to like put their token on the map and stuff?
Yeah, so they will immediately see the whole map. And then you've got two choices. One is, as the GM, you can actually place their tokens for them. So maybe they're starting again, maybe they're starting at the top of the map and you want them to be here by default. So you can drop their tokens there. And the other option, again, is to enable that fog of war um, piece. So you can,
Mm-hmm.
I can reset the map to completely hidden from players and then only reveal the bits that I want to reveal.
Right.
Personally, for me, I find Fog of War infuriating, both from a sort of player perspective and a GM perspective. I don't think it adds a lot to the game and can certainly be a real slowdown in terms of the combat.
Yeah.
So I typically only use Fog of War if I was doing like a really creepy dungeon encounter, where darkness was a factor and where light was a factor. And then I went to the trouble of doing that. And then the Fog of War feels special
Gotcha.
because it's once in a while, not all the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think Roll20 has dynamic lighting and stuff, but is it like a premium feature or something?
I don't 100% know. You'd have to check the documentation on the Roll20 for that. But yeah, I think it's a premium option for that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what I've heard before. Yeah. So, oh yeah, and Melody can confirm that. Yeah, it is a premium feature. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
but for me personally, I never use it, so it's not something that I would worry about.
Okay. Yeah. And then when you were resizing the grid, when we towards the beginning,
Yes, yes.
if the grid was bigger than the visible map, they just see like white empty space or something where the grid is. If you
If the
didn't
grid,
resize it,
they would see empty grid squares. Yes.
they would.
It
Okay.
just
All right.
it just looks a bit untidy. From this pages menu, I don't know if you can see, but to the left and the right and the top of this map currently, there's like a kind of grey background, right?
Mm-hmm.
But actually, from this settings page here, I can kind of change this. So hopefully, this works. Let me just draw that on there. Oh, that's the background. Sorry, no, that doesn't make any difference. That's the background if there wasn't a map there. Cell width, that's the color of the grid. It's the opacity of the grid. Okay, no, so I've got no idea. Yeah, I don't know how to change the actual background to Roll20. I think there is an option to do that, to like make it black or whatever if you were doing that.
Okay. Gotcha.
But if I don't know, if I go to this map and background layer and I move the map, you see we've got like a transparent area here.
Yep.
And I can change that and come into here and I can make that black if I wanted to.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it
Cool.
sort of doesn't make a difference, right? Because if you've got a picture and it's sized correctly, it's covering it anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool. Let's see. I don't see any new question. Oh, does Roll20 do hex grids?
yeah, so we covered that. Let's quickly create a new one. So we can come here, drop that, do this, grid, square, hex, go. We want to go here, and here's your hex map.
Okay, and then what were the two settings? There's a vertical versus horizontal.
Yes, so it's just the orientation of the hexes. So this is hex vertical, and then this is horizontal.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then
So some skirmish token games use hex maps. If anybody has had a look at the excellent Lancer mech RPG,
mm-hmm.
that uses a hex map. So if you were playing Lancer, this would be very useful for that. And again, you get their snap to hexes on it as well. So you don't have to sort of fiddle around with the exact positioning.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's see. Last call for any other questions in the text channel. Otherwise, I have one last question for you, and then I'll be done. One thing I've noticed with Astral, especially running Astral and Discord together, things can get a little heavy for some people's computers, a lot of memory usage and stuff. How do you have much knowledge about how heavy Roll20 feels? Does it run pretty smooth for everyone, or is there a lot of memory usage and stuff?
I think it's actually pretty good in terms of memory usage. I have run some really big Shadowrun maps on it with lots and lots of sort of token movements and things. It doesn't seem to get bogged down with both Roll20 and Discord running at the same time. I can't say about Astral or Fantasy Grounds. I've never used them, so but I've never experienced any issues with slowness or like machine grinding to a halt or Discord messing up. One thing to check would be in the settings in here, when you first load into Roll20, it tries to get a hold of your microphone and video. So I would definitely make sure that this was turned off. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that in here.
Yep.
So just make sure that this is turned off. Otherwise, that might be a sort of conflict between Discord and Roll20.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions coming through, so I think we can close this one out. But thanks again so much for doing this, Mark. I really appreciate it, especially doing it such short notice and covering a bunch of good stuff for us. Can't thank you enough.
My pleasure. Happy to help. Thank you, Sam.
And thanks everyone for listening in. Like I said, this was streamed on Twitch, and we'll bring over a VOD to YouTube, so you can check it out later if you want, or if you're already on YouTube watching this later, then you're in the right spot. If there's we'll have some links and descriptions and type stuff below the video, so link to Roll20 and things like that. Mark, is there anything that you want to give a shout out for? If people want to ask you questions or follow up with you, are you on Twitter or anything like that you want to share?
I'm not, but feel free to ask me questions in the newbie D&D sessions Discord. Happy to respond to any and all comments and advice in there. And just a shout out to my best friend Wit, who has a role-playing game out in a cyberpunk role-playing game called Black Code, which is an indie developed and published RPG. So I'll give them a shout for that.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Let's see. I think... our next special event is not this weekend, but the next weekend on Sunday. We'll be doing some Session 0 prep type of panel. There's going to be multiple speakers, so if you're interested in that, check it out. It'll be in Discord and Twitch just like usual. If you're ever interested in running your own special event as part of our community, all you have to do is just reach out and we can get something organized. And if you want to, keep the conversation going, ask questions even after this is done, you can post it in the Discord here, message CyberWomble, or join like the Tavern Voice channel or anything like that. And I think that's it. So thanks again to Mark. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.